Hello and welcome to Combat COVID-19 Community Support. We're so glad that you've joined us tonight. We have an outstanding topic on depression and how you're not alone and with everything right now. My name is Dawn Creech. I'm leading up the Combat COVID-19 Community Support effort, and I'm joined by two fabulous guest speakers, Groenwold. And I'm going to be introducing them in just one moment, but just a little bit about Combat COVID-19 community support. We are an informal coalition of healthcare providers and other community leaders, and we're really working together to live stream events, really focused on how you can care for you and your family during the pandemic. And we're funded by the Central Oregon Health Council. Go over disclaimer because my lawyer says we have to do so. So bear with me here. This event is provided for only. It's not medical advice or medical opinions. If you do require assistance with any mental health or medical issue, please contact your healthcare provider. Okay, with that, I'm super excited to introduce Sierra and Lacey. They are behavioral health consultants at Summit Medical Group here in Bend, Oregon, and they have a fabulous presentation planned for you and conversation this evening. They've also agreed to take questions from you, so please type in your questions if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll make sure that they get to those. And with that, I'm going to hand it over.
Hi guys, welcome. We just want to share a little bit about us and kind of where we're coming from as we talk with you this evening. I'm a behavioral health consultant in an integrated care model at Summit Medical Group Bend Memorial Clinic in Bend, Oregon, as well as Sierra Groenwold is. And in primary care, it's a really neat opportunity for us to work with patients across the lifespan for a number of reasons. We get the opportunity to support family medicine and internal medicine and some specialty clinics with our organization that's spread across Central Oregon.
Great. I'm Sierra Groenwold. I'm a licensed professional counselor and also work as a behavioral health consultant with Summit Medical Group. And I think, as Lacey said, the really beautiful thing about working in primary care and in internal medicine and family practice is we really have an opportunity to come alongside of our primary care providers and really provide more of a holistic approach to your healthcare. So primary care physician will focus mostly on the medical side of your healthcare, and then we focus on the mental health, really working in an integrative model, providing holistic approach and whole-centered care to give the best care possible to our patients. So it's pretty exciting, and we're just thankful that everybody is joining us today and that we get to join our community and be a part of helping out in the times of the COVID-19 pandemic. So thank you. So I will start off, I will start off with just really normalizing the experience that I'm hearing in my clinic, experience I'm hearing from my patients, within our community. My personal life is that I think people keep telling me, like, I've never experienced depression before, I've never had anxiety before. Why all of a sudden now am I feeling really hopeless? I'm having problems sleeping. I'm feeling really stressed out. What is going on? And I just want you to know that, one, that's a really normal experience. We have never managed a pandemic before. So we are all in this together, and literally we know it's changing hour by hour, day by day. And so you're not the only ones feeling it. We are feeling it as mental health professionals. Our doctors are feeling it. People at the front lines are feeling it. Teachers, parents. So we are all experiencing this. So if you're feeling like, gosh, why am I feeling this way, or what's wrong with me, that nothing is wrong with you. You are having a typical experience to navigating these really uncertain times and navigating a pandemic, which we've never done before. So just know I want to normalize that, normalize your experience. And then I want to kind of talk about really, Lacey and I will talk a little bit about themes that we're noticing coming up and what we're noticing with our patients, with our clients, and then recognizing signs and symptoms. What are the differences between feeling sense of sadness, feeling depression, and the difference between clinical depression, and then really leaving you with some resiliency, some tools, some ways that you can help to manage the depression you're experiencing with this pandemic. So I'm going to turn it over to Lacey. And Lacey, if you want to share a little bit about what you're noticing in your practice, what we're noticing with our patients that's coming up in terms of what we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes it's helpful. I love the normalizing piece, and then also helpful to recognize like the themes that we're experiencing too with this, that kind of speaks to when one might feel sad. And I think doom and gloom is just a word that would describe kind of that sense of hopelessness sometimes. And I almost like think of doom as like a cloud, right? That kind of comes over and that prevents one from seeing what's on the other side. It can create kind of a gray, kind of murky feeling. And I think there's a lot of doom that's being experienced with people right now. It's hard, I think, with the uncertainty themes, and we'll talk through that. All of these themes are kind of connected. But what contributes to doom is just, the not knowing, and then also feeling quite discouraged with all of the sudden changes. So when one is faced with being laid off and loss of income, and it's difficult to see how is one going to get through this, right? What's it going to look like on the other side? I've heard a lot of questions about, how do I even recover from this? And that's doom. So I think recognizing it and kind of giving it a name actually is quite powerful. Another piece with the doom, just to touch on, is how historical trauma can kind of show up here. And so if one has experienced, for example, being present with 9/11, being on the ground there, or being a veteran with Vietnam. Some of those traumatic historical experiences, lived experiences, they're showing up big right now for people. And that can also contribute to doom too. And so for those of you that does fit for you as far as a lived experience, just know that actually does make sense, because there's some similarities with what we're experiencing now with this pandemic. And I think validating that, and we're going to go into, kind of how to navigate and help yourselves with strategies for that doom and gloom piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Sierra.
Another theme we're seeing is really this isolation, loneliness piece. With seeing some people are quarantined, some people are practicing social distancing, stay-at-home order, all of this. A lot of people are working remotely. And I think there's a huge sense of isolation, a sense of loneliness. Even though you may have family there close by, you may not be actually even able to be near them or be present with them. And so I think just really validating your experience that that's a really common theme that most of us are experiencing and most of us are feeling. And I just really want to kind of tie in that even though we may not be necessarily able to be physically next to somebody, there's a lot of ways that we can connect socially. I think that is one of the beautiful things about social media, about our technology, is that with Zoom or say FaceTime, or even connecting kind of old school, write somebody a letter, send an email. How do we connect and find a sense of connection when a lot of people are feeling really disconnected and feeling really lonely and isolated from their loved ones, from the community at large, from engaging in daily activities that we're used to doing. So just know if you're experiencing that sensation of loneliness, and which is contributing to depression, that's a really normal experience. And we are really hardwired for connection. And Lacey will talk about this a little bit later, but we need connection, and we know that as humans, we are hardwired for connection. So really trying to find a way to connect when when we may not be able to be physically connected. So I encourage that. And I'm going to pass it back to Lacey and talk about the theme of uncertainty.
And I want to make one comment too with the isolation that I think is coming up for me, and others might have a different experience. But with the pandemic and this stay-at-home order, I think a lot of us are finding ourselves like in four walls, right? And that feels unique. Trying to really honor like the social isolation piece, so that we're not infecting more people, we're not spreading this virus. It makes sense with that recommendation, and we want to honor that. And it's difficult to be in one room or one living space all day, every day. And so I think that also contributes to that feeling of isolation when you're looking at the same thing over and over through the day. So I just wanted to make a note of that. So back with the another theme of uncertainty, and I mentioned this a little bit before, I think that is really kind of this idea or notion of not knowing when things are going to return to life as you know it, not knowing when, things might open back up as far as, your favorite coffee shop or your favorite restaurant. And then not knowing when things do open up, how it's going to be, right? Financially with our economy, what it's going to be like re-entering into school and the workplace. I think there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety and stress, even thinking about like this period of time, that it's almost as if we've kind of put life on pause, and even from like for kids and education, what it's going to be like in the fall. And I think there's some uncertainty that I see with people who, do have to go to the grocery store to get food to eat. And there's this question or fear of like, are you sick? Are you going to get me sick? You're standing too close to me, right? So I think this virus, we're learning about it, and the researchers and top physicians are just incredible as they're putting out information daily. But I think, as we all have known, like things keep changing, and so that creates uncertainty, and it can bring on some sadness and also obviously stress and anxiety too.
Yeah, I think that that's a huge theme. I think that you and I talk about that our patients are bringing up, that I think everybody's coming up with this really, when will things get back to this sense of normalcy, and what will that look like? And my assumption is going to be a new normal. It won't be a sense of normalcy. And so I think really just honoring that, respecting that you're experiencing that depression, some anxiety with that, and that we're all in this together. Again, that normalization of we're all feeling it, and we're all doing our best to navigate that. So know that that's a theme that's definitely coming up across the board for the majority of people we're seeing. So I'm going to transition into what are recognizing the signs and symptoms of depression, and really deciphering the difference between, am I just feeling sad? Am I feeling a little bit down, or am I feeling really clinically depressed? And what are the difference between those two? And then what do we do in terms of if we are feeling clinically depressed? Again, I want to normalize the experience of people feeling like, man, I'm not really feeling like myself. I'm feeling really just unmotivated. I don't really want to get out of my pajamas. I'm just not feeling myself. I'm having these crying spells that I normally wouldn't have. I'm experiencing just a lot of these depression symptoms I've never really experienced in my life. And is this normal? And my answer is absolutely yes. This is normal with the adjustment and with everything that's going on with the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a difference between when you are just feeling a normal reaction to something like navigating a pandemic, to where you're really unable to get out of bed, you just aren't getting out of bed, you're not engaging in daily activities such as bathing, daily hygiene, your sleep may be impacted. Either you're oversleeping, you may be undersleeping, you might have you're not eating, or you're overeating. There's a lot of things that the clear difference between when it's just a normal adjustment of sadness and depression related to all the transitions and adjustments we're experiencing, and when it's really causing some clinical problems in your life. You're having a lot of difficulty functioning in different areas, whereas it might be work if you're still working, relationships, physical stuff like that, when it really starts having some impact in a really negative way in your life, then I would say that you're experiencing some clinical depression. And at that point, I think it's really important to reach out to get some help. And Lacey will talk about this in a minute of when do you reach out to get help? When is it appropriate? How do you navigate engaging with a mental health therapist? How do you navigate engaging with your primary care physician? And when and how to do that. But I also want to talk a little bit about another thing that I'm seeing, and I know Lacey and other folks are seeing in clinic, is we're noticing a lot of hopelessness. And I think recognizing the difference between hopelessness and when you're starting to have thoughts of suicide or thoughts of not wanting to live anymore. And that's definitely in that realm of that clinical depression. And I think that's a real clear warning sign of I really need to seek some attention and seek help. And so if you are having that, whether it's I just don't want to wake up tomorrow, I don't know how I'm going to navigate all the changes with this pandemic or what may possibly happen, there's a lot of significant things that are contributing to hopelessness. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of financial stress, a lot of stressors with homeschooling, being isolated, again, all those things that we mentioned, which can bring up a lot of hopelessness. So if you're experiencing any thoughts of suicide, any thoughts of this extreme hopelessness where you're even fantasizing the thought of, I just don't want to live anymore, it would be better off dead, then I think it's really appropriate to seek help. And Dawn's going to put in the comment section some resources. So we have here in Central Oregon, we have a local crisis line that will be put into the comment section, and you can find that on the Combat COVID-19 website that you're on. So we have a local crisis line, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a therapist on the other line. They're there for you. It's all confidential. We have a mobile crisis team here in Central Oregon. There's a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number that is provided there. There's other resources. There's a teen-to-teen lifeline. Kiddos can text. They can call in. They can chat with other teens that is monitored by mental health professionals. And there's a warm line. There's also a line for elderly who are going through just experiencing some of this stuff, the isolation, all of that. And so there's a lot of different resources that people can access and make sure that they're getting the appropriate care that they need. And all these lines are confidential, and they are mental health professionals really helping to navigate this time with you. So please, I would just really encourage you to seek help when you need help. And I'm going to transition that to Lacey and let her talk about when to seek help and then how do you engage with your mental health providers and primary care physician when needed.
Yeah, thank you. I think this question of when to seek help, I want to just kind of put it back on you, right? Like individually to really think through, like, if you think you do, then you do. And so honor that, right? And think through how to navigate that as far as just honoring that insight in your intuition. Some people will say, like, I want some support. Others will start to notice the inference with, or that just that life is not working as well as they want it to be working, and their behaviors aren't showing up in the way that they need them to, as far as committing to doing the things that they know are good for them or healthy for them. Like Sierra talked about earlier, those basic examples of not feeling like you want to get out of bed in the morning, missing work, not being as present with your loved ones as normal. I think the interfering piece is one of the biggest tickets for me when I think about encouraging people to get some support. And especially if you've got some suicidal thinking, we want to encourage you to get support immediately, so that people can walk alongside you to help you navigate that intense experience. And I just want to call out too, I think sometimes it feels hard to engage in getting some support. And I just want to, again, normalize that. Like, most of us feel that. And I think it's because we're being vulnerable with each other, right? And often you're engaging with a supportive person, a clinician that maybe you haven't met before. And there's a lot of self-talk that can happen around judgment and fear of what someone else might think. And so I just want to validate that in the helping profession as clinicians, as therapists and licensed clinical social workers and medical providers, we have all taken an oath to do no harm and to care for people. And so we're going to show up to support you without judgment, with open hands to kind of navigate that together and understand the vulnerability and the trust that needs to be built in order to do that. So one of the easiest ways that you can get some support is connect with your primary physician if they have behavioral health consultants within their clinic. And you can always call them and just ask if they have any behavioral health folks there, and you can get connected right away. That's fairly easy. If you don't have a physician, then you can always reach out to your insurance company and they can give you a list of folks. If you don't have insurance, that's okay. There's lots of opportunity in the community to get support with a sliding scale. We got to be kind of creative right now with this pandemic. And so I will be honest, a lot of folks are doing virtual visits to honor that stay-at-home order. And so we're using platforms like we are right now so that we can meet that need. What else? You can go online and research the agencies in town. You can look at private practice therapists. There's a lot of folks that are ready and able to help, and they're picking up the phone and they're trying to get you in as soon as possible. Anything else, Sarah, that I'm missing on that piece?
Yeah, I would say one, oftentimes most insurance carriers do not require a referral from your primary care physician. So you do not need to, I would say most insurance carriers do not mandate that your primary care physician or a behavioral health provider needs to put in a referral. So oftentimes, like Lacey said, I think Psychology Today is a really good website to go on to. They have a lot of clinicians and really easy to navigate. You can filter under what insurance type you have. You can really filter into what you're looking for a clinician and different things like that. So, but I think Lacey's correct. I think with your primary care provider, you can do that. If your primary care clinic doesn't have behavioral health integration, they will help direct you in the right way. So we just want to know that there's a lot of clinicians out there. There's a lot of amazing work. I'm on several different work groups, and it's really amazing to see the work that the community is doing in terms of really trying to reach folks in a time of need. And so we are really doing a lot, and people are doing virtual visits to really protect your safety and to really follow with the guidelines of stay-at-home order and all of that. So just please get connected if you need help and are wanting to get connected. So we'll transition to really building resiliency. And this is something that I know I'm extremely passionate about and Lacey's really passionate about. We're both trauma-informed care trainers through Trauma-Informed Oregon, and we really try to view anything we do, whether that's in our practice as clinicians or that's in our personal life as through a trauma-informed lens. And so building resiliency and really building on the resiliency that we all have is really, really awesome and something that is super exciting to share and something that we all have within us to help us navigate the uncertainty and what's going on with the pandemic. So I just really want to talk about the strengths that come through adversity and how I think, our brains are hardwired to kind of gravitate towards a negative. And I think it's really something that is a practice to do is really looking at the positive in things. And I do believe, and there's a lot of research to support this, that there's some good that comes out of adversity, right? I think there's a lot of beautiful things you can see that are happening with the pandemic. I mean, down to we are seeing less pollution because less people are driving. Coral reefs are coming back. We're seeing all these really beautiful acts of kindness that people are doing to help, say, their elderly neighbor. They're going grocery shopping for them, things like that. And not all adversity. I don't want to minimize people's experience and the grief and the loss that they're experiencing with everything that's happening. But I think if we can also look at what positive is coming out of this, and just watching, I mean, our healthcare workers, watching people come together and really supporting each other. And I think that's one thing I absolutely love about Central Oregon, is that you really see that here. You see people really coming together, all of our work groups we're doing, and all the things that are happening in our community and in our world to really help to navigate this pandemic together, and doing it in the best way that we can and that we know how to. So I think that's one thing to really focus on, whether that's a gratitude practice, taking a few times out of your day just to notice what positive did come out of today. I was able to spend more time with my kids. I'm learning more about schooling. I'm going to reach out to a teacher and tell them how hard that is because it's hard homeschooling kiddos, right? Like all these things that we are recognizing that we may not have recognized before. So I really want to recognize that and focus on strengths that also can come out of these uncertain times. Another one is I think that helps us is really, I'm really honing in on focus on this, is creating some structure and routine. One of the things we really focus on and we saw is just a sense of uncertainty. And it is a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. Oftentimes, as we're seeing from the CDC and from different our organizations, things are changing really rapidly, and that can be really a struggle. And everybody's schedule, I think, is flip-flopped. We don't have structure anymore. We don't have routine, especially if you're not working, especially if you're homeschooling kids. I mean, so what I'm really telling my patients and my clients is really, how do you find a new sense of structure and routine to create a new sense of normalcy in a time that really is uncertain? So that can be just writing down a daily schedule, really trying to stay on a sleep schedule. I think sleep is extremely important. So staying on a sleep schedule, going to bed, waking up at the same time, finding something to be to do every day. It could be a small task, it can be a big one. I think utilizing this time that we have, you have extra time, and think about how many times we're struggling, we're busy at work. We just wish that we had a little extra time to get to those projects, get to the things that we wanted to do. Utilize this time to do some of those things. I think that can bring a lot of sense of purpose, sense of meaning, productivity that often will minimize anxiety and depression. So I think structure, routine, again, I can't stress this enough. I think it's really important, and it will just naturally decrease anxiety and depression. Another one is sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. What I always say too is back to basics. Oftentimes when we're stressed, we're overwhelmed, what's the first thing that falls off our plate is our self-care. We stop eating well, we not drinking enough water, we're not exercising, we're not getting out in nature or sun, we're not getting good sleep. So I always say my kind of rule of thumb is back to basics. Make sure you're getting adequate water, not overdoing on caffeine, alcoholic beverages, things like that, making sure you're getting food, you're eating healthy. Another silver lining is we're not going out to restaurants, not getting all that food, making home cooked meals. I think can be really great, making it fun, doing it with a family, teaching kids how to cook, utilizing that time, making sure we're getting sun, even if you can't get out and take a walk, really getting out in the yard, trying to soak up a little sun. We know that really helps with people's mental health and depression. And then what else am I missing? Am I missing anything else, Lacey?
No, you got it.
Okay. So back to basics. If it's anything else that you do, if you go back to those 5 things and really try to hit those during your day, I think it's going to help manage that depression and that anxiety. And then one other thing I want to really focus on is really trying to be informed, but not being overexposed. We are just there's social media, every single platform, we are just getting inundated with all of this COVID-19 news and all of that. And I think it's important to stay informed while not being overexposed. So whether that's just a 5-minute check-in with a reputable source and say, hey, what's happening out there, what's going on, and then shutting it off. And I think is really, really important because that's definitely a theme I'm seeing is this just kind of overall arcing theme they're noticing in the media. So those are some some things that I think that's going to help us build some resiliency, help us navigate this, help us decrease depression and anxiety. And I'm going to turn it over to Lacey.
Just we're kind of following along with this wheel. So the next one, and these are kind of resiliency factors and then coping strategies too. So if you're taking notes or wanting to kind of pull things away from things that you can do, that's where we're at. We're kind of in the chunk of it right now. So this is a positive reframe for those of you kind of wondering, what's the gift of time? Well, how often are we in a place, I know I can connect with this, where we don't have enough time to do the things that we want to do. And I hear that as a complaint majority of the time from people in my professional practice and then also in my personal life. And yet here we are with a lot of time on our hands, more so, it's maybe forced time. And so that feels a little different. But I think the invitation I have for you is to think about it as a gift. Right. So you get to decide what you want to do with it and how to use it. And maybe it's not productive. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe it's restful. Maybe it's full of relaxation. So as you find some downtime that's coming up, that's new, maybe if you're used to running 90 miles an hour in your life, right? See about working on reframing it and finding that as a gift, right? And kind of taking it in that way. So the next one is how to cultivate joy. So as we're home and have time on our hands and we're trying to stick to a routine and think about, what's happening, I think it's also important to encourage a little bit of a pivot, if you will. And I say that a lot. And what I mean, like on an internal level, is the pivot is what you're focusing on. So like Sierra said, it's great to be informed, and we need to be. And so thinking about the pandemic and what you're doing and how you're providing for yourself and what you need to do to keep yourself safe. Okay. And how can you work on also focusing in on joy and feeling joy and doing things that offer joy in you? And I think a lot of times it's hard to think about that when you're feeling really sad and really depressed. And I want to encourage you to try. So sometimes what helps is to think about, what did I used to do that I really liked, right? And maybe that's like dusting off the knitting needles that you haven't touched in a while, or bringing out your tools and working on your bike that's been in the garage for a while. Maybe it's literally sitting down and actually pulling out that book that you've been staring at for 6 months. Really thinking about like, okay, what can I bring about in me that would give me some pleasure? And I think that we've got control over that at this point, and so that's an encouragement too. On the next one, acceptance. I could write a book on this, and I won't bore you with it, but what I will tell you is acceptance can change your life when practiced right. Acceptance is not about ignoring or avoiding. That's not the point. Acceptance in this time, right now in this context with the pandemic, is really offering an opportunity to settle with what's happening around us without causing resistance, without making a bunch of judgment. It's noticing, it's observing, and just being. Right. And so it's kind of, it's like a psychological flexibility practice that we do and that we teach for people. And honestly, when people really get this practice, it makes a really big difference. And so how you would practice it would be just doing that, right? So if you've got a meditation practice, or you do breath work, or you're into prayer, like all of those are opportunities where you can practice this as well. If you notice sadness is kind of big and kind of you're feeling that doom and you're kind of wrestling with it, that's maybe the resistance that you could look at. And so that might be over here. And then maybe you pull in this notion of, okay, how might I practice some acceptance right now, right? And that's kind of this idea of settling. Anything else to add there, Sierra, on that piece?
I really like what Dr. Amy said I listened to her thing, and she was talking about kiddos and really talking about not about validation. Like, I think what you said, acceptance doesn't mean that you're ignoring. It doesn't mean you're dismissing, right? It just means that you are being present with what is. And I think when Dr. Amy was talking about the sense of like not minimizing people's experience, especially kids, and like they're not going to the prom, they're not being able to have a graduation ceremony, and it's easy to say like, well, you're being over dramatic, right? Because people are dying from this COVID-19 virus. Both can be true. Both, they can have a grief and loss experience with the changes and all the things that they're missing out on, and not just kiddos, but everybody, right? Vacations, and this is changing a lot of things for a lot of people, and so there can be some sadness in that, and you can have some acceptance around that, and there can also be this sadness around the pandemic. So both can coexist, and accepting that, I think, is really important, and not minimizing your experience and what you're feeling, because I think, again, emotions is information, and so we all have emotions. We all have a range of emotions, and there's no, in my opinion, no bad emotion. It's just all information. So it's what we do with it. And really sitting with it and being present is really important, because it's human nature to tune out, not tune in when we're in distress. And so really being that acceptance piece, I think, can really help us with that.
I'm going to jump to values connection. I'm thinking about time, and I'm going to try and be more succinct. So values connection is what it is, right? It's the idea of connecting to what's important to you. We all have different values, and I don't mean just religious beliefs. While that can be important for some people, values are really the principles that guide our living. So big values like love and respect and trust, those are all ones that one might connect with. They can also be really tailored to you individually. If you care about the earth, if you're involved in volunteering and giving back to the Humane Society, or to the forest, or to kids in need, or people who live outside. Those are all kind of values, and they guide us, right? They guide our life. And so when we get sad, we often we can get a little stuck, right? And that's that doom that comes in, and we slow down, and often we disconnect from what's important to us. And then that creates more sadness, and then we can get into a clinical depression type. So connecting to values is one thing you can do that will help you feel better. And I would encourage you to just make a list, like, what do I care about? And just jot it down, right? And even if you just come up with one thing, and then think about the next step is, am I living this out right now? So if you've got a partner and they recognize, well, they really care about love, would they say that they feel love from you, that they see love in you? That's one way to kind of check in with it. And if not, then there's your opportunity of a growing edge, right? As you lean into, how can I practice love today? Those are just kind of some ideas. And then gratitude, we've talked about a ton, so I'll be quick. But what I think is, with gratitude, it's helpful to be as specific as possible. So when you're practicing gratitude, it's this idea of engaging in a positive affirmation or a validation about something. And you can do that for yourself. You can do that for the people you live with, for other bigger kind of things, right? And it can be real simple, but get real specific with it. And if it helps, you can write it out, or you can tell somebody about it. And that just adds, it like solidifies to the meaning and then to the work that it does in you as well. Connection with others. So we've talked about this a lot in how to be creative, because we are ordered to stay at home right now. Our normal ways of connecting might not be able to do it, right? And so getting really creative with using ways to connect is something that we want to encourage. And I just wanted to share an example. There's a group of folks in New York right now that they're singing in the evening at 7:00 from their places of residence, wherever they live. And they're singing kind of the New York theme song. And I thought that was such a neat thing, right? And to hear each other from across the way, certainly it's different in our rural area. We might not be able to do that in that way, but I thought that was a really neat way to connect, and likely wouldn't be happening unless this pandemic was happening. So there's another resiliency piece to kind of pick up on. Any other thoughts on that?
I think one thing that came up to me, and then we were talking about this values-based idea of living. One thing that I've had some of my patients recently that really brought a lot of joy for them and their family is that we were talking about vision boards and connecting to values, and they created a vision board as a family, and they have it hanging there, and it really just every time they walk by it, they're excited, or it brought a lot of connection for them, and stemmed a lot of conversations around like, oh, I didn't know that was a value for you, or oh, I didn't know that was super important for you. And this visual representation that they have in their house, basically towards their values, even in the midst of this pandemic. So I think that was really cool, and something just might be a thought for folks to do. So I want to throw that out there. And then before we switch to question and answers, I want to read this quote from Brene Brown I found today. I thought was really awesome and really is very relevant right now. And I started off talking about really validating people's experience and what you're experiencing. And I hear a lot of, when will things go back to normal? When it will go back to normal? And I think the reality of it is, we want it to go back to normal. We can find there's a lot of beautiful things that are coming out of the pandemic. And how do we create a new normal and a new sense of normalcy for ourselves? So I'm going to read this quote for you, and then we'll transition into question and answer. So this is from Brene Brown. She says, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits of all humanity and nature." So I'll leave you with that, and then I'll switch it over to Dawn to ask us some question and answers.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sierra and Lacey, for information. I thought there was a lot of good stuff there. So we're happy to take some questions from the audience, but Sierra and Lacey were actually kind enough to put together a few questions that they are getting like almost on a daily basis in their clinics. So we thought we'd just go through a few of those sort of frequently asked questions. So first of all, a question is, I'm so scared to leave my neighbors or socialize with family members. Is this normal?
Lacey, do you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
Sure, I can take it. And you were cutting out a little bit, so I think I heard it correctly. Just the question of, is this normal to feel scared to leave my house? Did I get that right, Dawn? Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things that can contribute to what that scared feeling is. And what we would encourage you to do is just check in, right? Check in with your thinking and notice, what that fear is about. And how you might be able to soothe yourself with it and still get out of your house to do something that you absolutely need to do, like getting food, getting groceries, going outside away from people, to move your body, to be in nature. Those are things that you definitely can do. And some people, obviously feel a bit more comfortable if they go to this one spot where there isn't anyone else and they can enjoy a walk on a trail with their dog. So really just checking in, I think, on that piece is what I would recommend.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really, again, I can't tell you how many times they hear every single day from our patients of, I'm scared to see my elderly family member. I'm scared that people are going to judge me if I go out to the grocery store, and I'm elderly and I have no other option, things like that. So again, normalizing this experience that Yes, that is a really common theme that we're experiencing. And how do you combat that? Again, I think this sense of needing for connection, and how do we still stay connected even though we can't be physically close to the people that we love? How do we go about while still trying to practice social distancing is really important. So I would leave it with that.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, we have another question for you, which is, I don't really have much motivation to engage in my daily activities or things that I usually enjoy.
So I think you're cutting out a little bit, Dawn. I'm guessing the question was, I'm having a hard time engaging in daily activities. I'm not feeling motivated. I'm feeling just not well. Is this normal? Okay, and yes, that is normal. I think, again, when I talk about that, that's a pretty typical that I'm hearing again from almost everybody I'm seeing on a daily basis is, gosh, I just don't have any energy. I just don't know where I'm going to find this motivation to do these things. And I think that's where that structure and routine can come in and really help. If you have an agenda, you have, you know what to expect throughout your day, it really creates a sense of structure, which again helps minimize depression and anxiety. So I think that's really important to do. And again, going back to knowing the difference between clinical depression and sadness. If it's to the point where you can't get out of bed, you're not getting out of bed for days, you're not engaging in daily life, that's a really clear sign that it's important to reach out for help, get connected to your primary care physician, seek out therapy, get connected to a behavioral health provider, and get the appropriate help that you need.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for that information. Questions. Are you able to hear me okay right now? Matt, if you're able to see the questions on Facebook, would you be able to read them?
Yes, I can do that. Hold on. I will pull them up.
Thank you so much. Matt is our production partner at Hand in Hand Productions.
Hi, all. That's me right there. Hold on one second. I got to get there here. 1 second here. Dawn, if you want to go ahead and read that first one, and I'll get to it here real quick.
If you guys can hear me on this one. All right. The first question, is it normal to feel strange situation?
I'll grab that. Did you guys understand what she said? No. Okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I'm getting there right now here. Hold on. Shoot. Okay. Is it normal to feel strangely okay with this whole situation?
I think we can both comment. I love that question. Yeah.
Lacey, do you want to take that or you want me to take it?
I think we should both comment. I'm curious what you think too, but just off the top, yes, I think it is. And I think, when I think okay, I'm always curious, right? If we were to have a conversation, well, what does okay mean for you? And it's definitely like great that there might be a healthy reaction to this, right? And you just want to make sure that if you're feeling okay, that there's some validation, if there's some contentment, and then make sure that you're just honoring what you need to continue to be safe and honor the recommendations with what we need to be doing to keep each other healthy during the pandemic.
Yeah, I would reiterate that. I believe everybody's experience is their own experience, and it's okay to have that experience in the midst of this. And that can feel awfully strange when everybody around you feels like they're panicking. And I think, again, bringing back in that overexposure and not being overexposed is really important, because when we see all these examples of people overreacting, hoarding toilet paper, overbuying things, I think it really can cause this increased anxiety and depression. And so I think really validating your experience and reiterating what you said, as long as we're following CDC guidelines and really practicing social distancing, so we're not only keeping ourselves safe, but we're keeping others safe, I think it's absolutely normal to experience that.
I have another one, and this one's a little. Yeah, I think you guys will understand it better than myself. Can you please repeat the 5 basics to follow? So I'm not sure, but I think you guys probably know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah. So when we're not doing well, again, I think self care is the first thing that goes off of our plate. And so my recommendation to my clients is back to basics. Let's start making sure we're getting adequate water, making sure that we're eating well, we're eating healthy, and we're eating regularly, that we're getting enough exercise, we're getting sun, getting in nature is really important, and then we're getting good sleep. So going back to that structure routine of making sure we're going to sleep on time, we're getting up the same time, engaging in anything if you're feeling like racing thoughts or anxiety is keeping you from falling asleep or waking up through the night. Meditation practice. There's a lot of awesome apps that are offering free services right now that you can do. I'll just name out a few that I recommend. Calm is one, CALM. Headspace is another one that's really great. And then Insight Timer are a few that I recommend that are really good, and they can help walk you through how do you engage in a meditation practice, how do you engage in more mindfulness that's going to really help downregulate that nervous system so your anxiety goes down so that you're able to fall asleep and you're able to stay asleep. So that is what I recommend.
Lacey, did you have anything to add, or?
No, she nailed it.
Okay. Here, I'll put you on the spot there as I switch right to you, and yes.
It's okay.
Dawn, I'll kick it back to you.
Okay, so I apologize for the audio issues on my end. If you can hear me, thank you so much for joining us, and a special thank you to Lacey and Sierra for volunteering their time to be here tonight to talk about this important topic. We've shared a number of resources in the chat box. If you're feeling like you need help, please reach out, and just know that here at Combat COVID-19 Community Support, we're here to help you. Join us tomorrow. We actually are ending the week with the topic on kids and COVID. We have a wonderful pediatrician, Dr. John Peoples from Central Oregon Pediatric Associates, joining us. That's at 4:00 tomorrow. And then please go to our Facebook page to see the schedule of live events every week. And you can view those either live or recorded on Facebook or YouTube. So with that, thank you so much again for joining us, and have a nice evening.
You want us to log off?
1 second.